Lectures on the governing principles of ancient China. An honourable person should be discreet in speech. Speaking is a great art. There is a Chinese saying, illness enters through the mouth while trouble exits from it. In Analects, excerpts from which were compiled in the governing principles of ancient China, it was said, an honourable person should be discreet in speech and prompt in action. It is to remind us that when speaking, we should do so slowly and be cautious about what we say. However, when acting, we should be decisive and prompt to prevent losing good opportunities. Professor Yuli Liu from the Department of Philosophy at the Party School of Central Committee of CPC is going to bring us her interpretation of the governing principles of ancient China and show us how to be discreet in speech and prompt in action. Here is lectures on the governing principles of ancient China. An honourable person should be discreet in speech. Professor Yuli Liu graduated with a bachelor's and master's degree in philosophy from Renmin University of China. She is currently a professor at the Department of Philosophy at the Party School of Central Committee of CPC and a mentor for doctoral students majoring in ethics. She is also a visiting professor at Tsinghua College, Sun Yat-sen University. Professor Yuli Liu has published many academic papers, received a PhD from the University of Hull, UK, and is a postdoctoral scholar at the National University of Singapore. She has been invited to give lectures and participate in workshop seminars in the UK, Italy, the USA, Canada, Australia, Japan, Singapore and Indonesia. In 2015, 2016 and 2017, she was invited to UNESCO headquarters in Paris to give talks based on the governing principles of ancient China. The central theme of her talks was the importance of the sage's education. In other words, learning from the wisdom of the past and also how to promote moral education. She has contributed greatly towards the dissemination of Oriental culture in the Western world. This video was edited by the Governing Principles of Ancient China translation team of the Pure Land Learning College Association and is based on the lectures by Professor Yuli Liu.
Dear friends, greetings to you all. Our topic today is, an honourable person should be discreet in speech. This sentence comes from Analects as compiled in the Governing Principles of Ancient China. Be discreet suggests that we should slow down our speaking speed and consider our words carefully before talking. If we are not cautious enough and say something wrong, it would be too late to take it back. Therefore, honourable people are always discreet in speech. Being discreet in speech is an important teaching and can be found in many ancient classics. For example, in Book of Changes, Zhou Yi, excerpts from which were compiled in the Governing Principles of Ancient China, Confucius said, "Good words spoken by a noble person, even at home, will be agreed to by people 1,000 miles away, let alone those who are close. Evil words that are spoken even at home will be objected to by people 1,000 miles away, let alone by those who are around." Words are spoken by one person but can affect the populace. Conduct is done here but can impact others far away. Speech and conduct are crucial for an honourable person, just like the hinges of a door and the spring of a crossbow. The hinges movement brings glorious or disgraceful consequences to the person. It is the honourable person's speech and conduct that can move heaven and earth. How could an honourable person not be vigilant in speech and conduct? What Confucius said echoes a Chinese saying, "The mouth is the door to good fortune or misfortune." Also in Book of Changes, as compiled in the governing principles of ancient China, there is another interesting quotation worth reading. Impetuous people always talk volubly. How can we know that someone is impetuous? We may find out from their speech. If a person always talks a lot, regardless of the topic, this person could well be impetuous. Will an impetuous person have a smooth career? Most likely not. Think about it. If we were a supervisor, would we trust a person who always spoke quickly and volubly without thinking about the results? Of course not. Therefore, impetuous people will most likely suffer difficulty in their careers. Not only that, an impetuous person may have poor health and a shortened life due to the voluble talking. According to traditional Chinese medicine, garrulous speech harms one's qi, which is the inner energy that maintains the metabolism. The greater one's qi, the longer one's lifespan. Those Taoists who are good at maintaining health pay particular attention to preserving their qi. Therefore, we should think before speaking and try to avoid unnecessary words. This is good for both our career and our health. The same advice is found in Book of Changes, where it is recorded, "Fortunate people speak less." Knowing the preceding, fortunate people are very cautious with their speech and only speak appropriate words on appropriate occasions. Therefore, whenever talking, we need to be mindful of the occasion, the timing, the purpose of our speech, and the potential influence on the related people and matters. Would our words harm others even if our intention is good? If we don't consider carefully how we are about to express ourselves and give voice to our thoughts, we may hurt others heedlessly. Then it would be very hard to rectify the situation since the damage is already done. To expand on this, we must be cautious in our written words as well. If other people's honour or interests are damaged by our written words, even if done unintentionally, we are responsible for their loss. On the other hand, if we are cautious and speak the right words at the right time on the right occasion, we will bring good fortune to both others and ourselves. For example, when we see others suffering, we should first take a step back and analyse the situation to find out the reasons of the sufferings. Then we could try and help others by providing suggestions and comfort. When we see others being defamed, we also should first take a step back and analyse the situation, and then say a few words of support in objection to the injustice. By doing this, we are not only helping others, but also cultivating our verbal merits.
An honourable person should be discreet in speech. This is a famous quote from Confucius that has been passed down for 2,000 years in China. By quoting Analects and Book of Changes, as compiled in the governing principles of ancient China, Professor Liu asserted that it is not that one must not speak, but rather that one must not speak hastily and must think twice before speaking. When it is the right time to speak, one should do so bravely. When it is not the right time to speak, one must keep silent. By so doing, one would be able to accumulate good virtue and merits. Alternatively, if one does not consider the occasion, the timing, the tone, and the words before speaking, one can easily, at a lesser degree, bring harm to others and oneself, and at a graver degree, bring chaos to a region. Hence, an honourable person is very cautious of his or her speech and not hasty with it. Let us continue with lectures on the governing principles of ancient China. An honourable person should be discreet in speech.
Many Chinese know the famous line, "A gentleman's words are beyond the pursuit of a four-horse chariot." This line came from a conversation between two scholars and was recorded in Analects about 2,000 years ago. Zi Cheng said in An Honourable Person, "It is only the good internal character that is wanted. Why seek for external manners?" Zi Gong, who was a student of Confucius, replied, "Oh, what a pity, sir, for you have said that. A gentleman's words are beyond the pursuit of a four-horse chariot. External manners arise from the internal character, and internal character also arises from external manners." From Zigong's words, we understand that an honourable person should possess both good internal character and external manners. The lack of either of them is not proper. For example, when someone shows respect to another person by bowing deeply, but actually looks down on the other person in his or her own heart, people will say the one's bowing is insincere. This is having good external manners but lacking good internal character. On the contrary, if a person is very kind and honest but has not showered and changed clothes for a month, will the person leave a good impression on others? Of course not. Therefore, Zhigung summarised that an honourable person should pay attention to both internal character and external manners. For external manners, Zhigung used the manner of speech as an example. Once an inappropriate word is spoken, it will be too late to undo it. Therefore, Zhigong's words became a famous saying, "A gentleman's words are beyond the pursuit of a four-horse chariot." In other words, honourable people should be very cautious in their speech. Once the words are spoken, it will be too late to regret. In another chapter in Analects, Zhigung also said something similar. For one word, a gentleman can be deemed to be wise. Also for one word, a noble person can be deemed to be foolish. We ought to be careful indeed in what we say. Once we understand the importance of speaking, where should we start to improve our speech? We start with cultivating our heart. Ancient sages told us, speech is the expression of our heart. So, to improve our speech, we should have a benevolent heart. What is benevolence? This is a great question. The same question was asked by Yan Yuan, who was one of the students of Confucius. The answer was recorded in Analects as compiled in the governing principles of ancient China. How did Confucius reply? He said, "To subdue oneself and return to propriety is benevolence." Yan Yuan then asked how to carry out such a practice. Confucius said, "Do not look at things that do not accord with propriety. Do not listen to things that do not accord with propriety. Do not say things that do not accord with propriety. Do not think things that do not accord with propriety." What is propriety? Respecting and not harming others is propriety. Alternatively, telling jokes with sexual connotations without considering the occasion is against propriety. By controlling our seeing, listening, speaking and thinking to accord with propriety, we will become a virtuous person with a benevolent heart. In school sayings of Confucius, excerpts from which were compiled in the governing principles of ancient China, a story about speech was recorded. One day Confucius went to observe the ancestral remembrance ceremony at the clan temple of the kings of the Zhou dynasty. At the entrance of the temple, he saw a bronze statue of a man with his mouth sealed threefold. There was a paragraph inscribed on the back of the statue that read, "This is a person of ancient times who was very cautious with his words." It is well known that during the early period of the Zhou dynasty that King Wen, King Wu of Zhou and Duke of Zhou were regarded as sages by Confucius. Why was such a statue erected at the entrance of the temple of these sage kings? Is the statue of a man with the mouth sealed threefold of great significance? Yes, of course. It was telling people that the art of speech was very important to the sage kings. Since then, the phrase, "with his mouth sealed threefold," has become a Chinese idiom describing a person who is very cautious with his or her speech. When we speak, we must be mindful of what we say and not say anything that will negatively impact society.
In the last section, by quoting the text from Analects, Professor Liu shared with us the conversation between Ji Zechang and Zegong. From this conversation, we understand that an honourable person should not only develop good internal character, but also good external manners. The combination of both internal and external qualities is a characteristic of honourable people. The good internal character of honourable people will be shown naturally by their good manners. In other words, people who are virtuous and honourable act according to propriety. This is what Confucius said in Analects. Do not look at things that do not accord with propriety. Do not listen to things that do not accord with propriety. Do not say things that do not accord with propriety. Do not think things that do not accord with propriety. In a similar way, we can judge from what people do, and especially from what they say, the quality of their character. Honourable people will definitely be cautious with their speech. Let us continue with lectures on the governing principles of ancient China. An honourable person should be discreet in speech.
People in the past only needed to be concerned with their speech and the articles they wrote. But in our current society, we have more things to be concerned about. The development of media has enabled easy and free broadcasting on the internet. Those who work in the media industry should be very cautious in what they do and be familiar with traditional cultures. Why do I say this? Without knowledge of traditional culture, media people may not be aware of the negative effect on society caused by the news they spread. In order to catch people's attention, they may broadcast news along with the facts that are beneath the social norm and with gossip that may not be the truth. What is the nature of the news we see nowadays? It is said that if a dog bites a person, this is not news. However, if a person bites a dog, that is definitely newsworthy. The media has tried to put negative information in the public domain to catch the eyes of the public. The public, after having been inundated with the information, may take such phenomena as the norm and take what is wrong to be right. Such broadcasting in the media will have a negative influence on the people, who will then not be persuaded to have good conduct. So the evil side of humanity will be promoted. Therefore, media people should study traditional cultures and be cautious when broadcasting. Among the traditional cultures are their principles for the media. The ancient sages told us that the media person should obey one rule: to praise the good and not to mention the bad. For example, you are a journalist and you interviewed an influential person who said something that was inappropriate. If such speech were to be published, it would have a negative impact on society. Would you insist on publishing everything he had said? If you abide by the rule, you would not. Unfortunately, some media people do not know this rule, let alone follow it. I heard of a news story many years ago about a famous movie star who had an extramarital affair. When a journalist interviewed him, he responded, "This is a mistake that any normal man would make." Does this mean that if you do not have an extramarital affair, you are not a normal man? Imagine that this movie star has millions of fans who follow him closely. If he had said such things and the journalist helped him broadcast such a view, wouldn't his fans be influenced by these words? Wouldn't the journalist be the person who helped him spread such words of disgrace? Both the movie star and the journalist had to be responsible for the negative impact on society. What they did is just like a saying in Chinese: a single word can destroy a state. Such words of the movie star could destroy a society's view of morality because his words would influence people's minds and lead them to take such disgraceful actions as normal and to take them for granted. In traditional Chinese culture, there are many great stories about loyalty in love. One of them is the story of Liang Shanbo and Zhu Yingtai, who loved each other through smooth situations and bitterness and went through hardship together and were willing to die together. It is a very moving story. Being faithful to one's spouse is a virtue. How can a person say that to have an extramarital affair is a mistake any normal man would do? If such a view were broadcast on the extensive internet, how many more disgraceful acts would be encouraged? This is why our wise ancestors drew a very clear line in the sand, to praise the good and not to mention the bad. There are many good stories worthy of broadcasting in our society. For example, the filial children who look after their sick parents for a long time, the couples who persevere in loving each other despite hardships, and the one sibling who gave his inheritance to another. We should broadcast these things, which are the proper norms of our society. We should not make waves in the media about negative affairs. Hence, it is vital that journalists and people in the media must exercise great caution in their work. Apart from not spreading negative news, we need to pay attention to another form of incorrect behaviour: untrue speech. For example, a person does not possess a certain ability but lies that he or she does. This boasting about self is untrue speech and was warned about by ancient sages. Untrue words reduce one's good fortune and luck. If one's lie is discovered one day, one's reputation will collapse. Even so, many people still like to boast about themselves. Why? Actually, their boasting is a reflection of their internal weakness, timidity, worry, and being under pressure, which can all be easily seen through by a wise person and be the evidence of their shortcoming. So, the more they pretend to have, the more we know they don't. On the contrary, observing those who are capable and successful, we will find these people are always modest and reluctant to boast about themselves. This is because they are confident of what they possess, which is obvious to all. I guess many people have had a similar experience. The good luck which once had shown up will be lost soon and even turn to misfortune. Those who do have luck but lie about having it are decreasing their good fortune. One day, when the truth comes out, their reputation will become worthless. Therefore, if we have the tendency to brag falsely about ourselves, we must try and eliminate such a bad habit, as lies will always be lies. In society today, freedom of speech is often spoken of. However, to express our views freely doesn't mean we can say whatever we like, such as things that are fake or negatively influence society. We must be cautious in the things we say in our home, in society, and in the instantaneous internet world. When we understand trouble comes out from the mouth, we will be very cautious in our speech to avoid any possible problems. In Book of Changes, there is a description of the drawstring of a bag. This is a reminder that we need to keep our mouth closed, like when we use a drawstring to close a bag. When a bag is properly closed, its contents won't fall out. When one's mouth is closed at the correct times, one will not say anything that can cause problems.
Earlier in her lecture, Professor Liu explained about and compared the consequences of both cautious and imprudent speech. She further analysed and commented on the proper use of speech in the media. Professor Liu is of the view that an honourable person should be discreet in speech. It's not a motto that is only applicable to individuals nowadays, but is also applicable for the media industry and even our entire society. An individual might suffer consequences from imprudent speech and bring harm to others. On a greater scale, an individual can even cause damage to society and influence the good social norms via the media. This is detrimental to the harmonious development of society. The media industry, with its extensive and instantaneous coverage, must pay extra attention to its speech and broadcasts and should obey the rule passed down from the past, to praise the good and not to mention the bad. They must deliver positive messages. Let us continue with lectures on the governing principles of ancient China. An honourable person should be discreet in speech.
We should also refrain from being abusive in our language by complaining, from criticising others all the time, and from either subduing or stirring things up. Let's reflect on ourselves. What did we say from this morning to the time we went to bed? Did we say nice things that were like pure and beautiful lotuses? Or did we use our tongues to spread evil words? If we did the latter, we were not only wasting a lot of time, but also harming our health and ruining the mood of others. We should be aware that critical language directed with anger towards others will bring more harm to ourselves than to others. Controlling our language is a responsible act, not only for others, but more so for ourselves. People may say, I know blaming will put me in a bad mood, but if I don't say it, people won't change. However, have we thought about the negative impact to others by our negative comments? A lot of psychologists have researched the implications of language on others. When we speak, we may unknowingly hurt others. For example, if a wife often says to her husband, "Why can't you be like your colleague who is making big money, is favoured by his boss and gets promotions? Why can't you learn from him?" Or if a mother often says to her son, "Why can't you be like your classmate who is doing extremely well in class, plays the piano and is also good at writing poetry? You are not half as good as him in all these." If we use these kinds of words in our communications with others, how would they feel? They would probably turn their head and walk away from us. Here is another example. A child was not very good at math and often failed his math exams. His father criticised him each time after the results came out, with comments such as, "Do you have a bug in your head? Why can't you even do such easy questions?" The more the father scolded his son, the less confident his son was in math. By accident, this father sat in on a lecture on traditional Chinese culture and realised that what he had done was not right and that he could be one of the reasons for his son's poor math results. After that, this father changed his attitude and stopped criticising his son. If there was any little improvement on his son's exams, he would praise his son and encourage him by saying, "Well done, you have made progress. You will do even better next time." Consequently, the son became more and more confident and made great progress in math. There are quite a lot of examples like this. I'd like to share with you an example in a different category, the relationship between husband and wife. There was this newlywed couple. The wife had a beautiful voice and she sang with joy when she did housework. Her husband, however, preferred quietness. One time when he wanted to enjoy his quietness, he criticised his wife's singing. "You sing so poorly, just like a crow." He said such comments quite often. Gradually, his wife lost her confidence and was afraid to sing in public. After some time, the husband passed away and she remarried. On one occasion, she sang while doing her housework. Her second husband liked her voice very much and praised her. "Your singing is so beautiful. I have never heard such a beautiful voice." At first, she thought her husband was teasing her, but her husband kept praising and encouraging her after she sang. She regained her confidence and sang better and better. Eventually, she participated in a singing competition and did very well. This story illustrates how unintentional language can unconsciously influence people, especially those who are close to us. For example, parents, as the first source of knowledge for their children, can greatly influence their innocent children without being aware of doing so. Many people find this an interesting phenomenon. A child's capability that is praised by the parents will invariably improve. On the contrary, if the parents doubt a child's capability and talent, the child may not dare to go ahead or even try. Therefore, please let us say more kind and encouraging remarks to those who are close to us. In such a way, our lives will become more and more harmonious. Of the speech-related mistakes, 3 can be summarised. In Analects, as compiled in the Governing Principles of Ancient China, Confucius said, "Those who serve an honourable person may make the following 3 errors." What are they? First, to speak out when the time is not right is called rashness. For example, during a meeting when our supervisor hasn't asked for any comments and we ventured to say something. This is rashness. Another example would be in a gathering of many people in which many seniors were present. It is often deemed that the seniors should offer their opinion first, and then when juniors are asked their opinion, they can express their views. If a junior precedes a senior and talks without being requested, this action would be classified as rashness. This is the first error. Second, not to speak out when the time is right is called concealment. For example, if our supervisor asks us something and we know the answer, we should not conceal the fact. Also, when we are asked if we do not answer promptly but make people wait, our behaviour will be regarded as arrogant and offensive. And third, to speak without observing the facial expression of others is called blindness. Given the previous 2 categories, we must also pay attention to the recipient. If they are receiving our comments with ease, we might go on and express our opinion in a polite manner. If they are already unhappy, it would be very blind for us to continue our comments, despite the correctness of our speech. This would be categorized as blindness.
Confucius told us an honourable person should be discreet in speech. The ancient wise Chinese have also passed down advice such as, "Illness enters through the mouth while trouble exits from it." All these are reminders for us to be cautious of our speech. Professor Liu uses the quotes from Book of Changes and says that we need to control our mouth like using the drawstring of a bag. How do we achieve this? Professor Liu quoted Confucius from Analects, as compiled in the Governing Principles of Ancient China, about the 3 mistakes. To speak out when the time is not right is called rashness. Not to speak out when the time is right is called concealment. To speak without observing the facial expression of others is called blindness. This is a great summary. Let us continue with lectures on the governing principles of ancient China. An honourable person should be discreet in speech.
Many people have heard of Confucius's famous 4 studies, which were set by the order of importance. The first one, also the most important one, is virtuous conduct. The second most important is speech, then skills for making a living is the third, and the arts is the fourth. From this order we can understand how important our speech is. To sum up, We all should be discreet in speech. This is the end of today's talk. Thank you very much.